Students, how are you guys doing today? Today we're going to be going through our learning guide. So mono printing, lino cutting, and dry point. And just making sure we understand all the terms to prepare ourselves for our quiz coming up. So if you want to open up first to the mono printing learning guide, there's nothing for you to actually fill out here. There's just some definitions that I want to just kind of quickly go over with you and make sure that you understand. What really makes a mono print unique is that you can only make one print from one plate. Okay, so for example, this is a mono print. I painted my plate, I transferred it. There's only one unique print from my mono print that will ever look like this one. Okay, very different from your stamp, which will always continue to print the same. My mono prints will always be unique. Okay. When you pull a print, that's basically just when you take your paper and you remove it from the block. It's called pulling. And then your ghost image is when you pull from multiple images from one mono printing plate. So for example, these are ghost images, right? I pulled this one the first time, the second time I pulled this one, but it was the same plate. I just pulled it 2 different times, okay? Of course, make sure you understand what printmaking actually is. Okay, so it's transferring images from one matrix. Matrix is just another word for your plate or your block or whatever it is you're printing off of to another surface. So you're taking something from an already existing matrix and then printing, stamping, transferring it to another image, and that is the simple idea of all types of printmaking. Let's look at our lino cut guide here. Our lino cut guide has some areas where we're going to fill in some types of tools, right? First thing we want to make sure that we understand is that lino cut printing is a type of relief printing. And all that really means is that when you roll ink onto the surface of a relief, the raised areas are what gets printed. That is essentially a relief print, whether that's done in linoleum or wood. The raised areas are what gets printed, and that's what makes it a relief print. Okay, let's go over the tools real quick here. Okay. We have this guy, if you might remember. This is called a linoleum gouge. Okay, sometimes I'll call it a linoleum cutter, but it's called a linoleum gouge. Okay, and that's how you spell that. Right, linoleum gouge. Next, we have this tool. This is what we use to rub on top of our stamp, after to transfer it. And this is called a baron. Okay, don't get it confused with the brayer. Okay, these are 2 different tools. This one's called a baron, and this one is called a brayer. Okay, I know it's really easy to call it a ruler or, whatever, but its actual name is, in fact, a brayer, and this thing's actual name is, in fact, a baron. Okay. Another tool some of you used and others didn't is a bench hook. Right, the bench hook just hooks onto the edge of the table. You put your print in here, and it allows you to have a little bit more control, and your linoleum block won't move. But this tool is in fact called a bench hook. And then last but not least, at the bottom here is simply a picture of linoleum itself. Okay, that's the linoleum. Right. And then over here on the side, there's just a couple of definitions such as positive and negative space. Those are review items from last year or 2 years ago. Make sure you realize that you can make an addition from the relief printing because you can print multiples of the same thing. So an addition is just identical prints of the same plate. You can't have that with mono printing because they'll never be the same. Okay? So that's the basics and the tools of lino cutting. Lastly, our dry point learning guide. Dry point is a type of printmaking called intaglio. Okay? And what that means and how that differs from relief printing is what prints is actually now into the engraved areas. So the areas that you actually carve down, that's the area that is now printing, which is the exact opposite of your relief printing. So this is raised areas, and these are the areas that are etched in that get printed. So that's the difference between relief printing and intaglio printing. Right? And then dry point printing is just a type of intaglio printing. There's lots of different types of intaglio printing. We're just focused on dry point. Okay? We have our tool here. Okay? You can see there's lots of different types of burins. This is how you spell burin. Okay? But that is in fact what this tool is called. It's called a burin. And then you have your printing press. I'm not going to show you mine, but you know what it looks like. And then remember, those felt pieces, they're called a blanket, okay? The pieces that you put into the kiln, into the printing press is called a blanket. Do not want to put that into a kiln. That would be very bad. And then lastly, down here is a picture of nothing more than hatching. And we have a definition over here for hatching, and that's how you create those tonal areas with the lines and the shading, okay? So that's a basic rundown of the materials and some of the vocabulary related to printmaking. I'm going to be checking these sheets when you turn your sketchbook in. Remember, let me remind you, right? Let me remind you that my AP 2D class, this is due October 5th. For you, and my regular 2D period 4 class, this is due for you October 8th. That's something you should be working on at home. Remember, using at least 2 different materials in your sketchbook to reinvent one of your prints, whether that's drawing on top of, printing on top of, painting on top of, collaging, whatever that may be. That is due either October 5th for my AP period 3 or on October 8th for my 2D period 4. Okay, I will be checking this on that day along with your guides that should be now filled out. Okay, so I'll be looking for that on those respective dates, and we'll be looking at a printmaking quiz sometime after October 8th, sometime during that week, and I'll give you plenty of warning as to that. All right, you all have a good day.